Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes' Tottenham blog and to another episode of Transfer Talk. Today I'm just going to be going over a few of the developments in the transfer window again and talking about the deals that may or may not be going through this window. And before I get started, I'm going to be starting a fantasy football league for the YouTube channel, and I'm going to leave a code for the description down in the description after I publish the video. But if you want to know it now, the code is 8MTEKC. So everyone join that, get your friends and stuff to join it. We try to get a big league going. I'm also running a Facebook group. I'm going to leave the link in the description as well at the end of the video. So to start, there's a bit of news regarding Giovanni Lo Celso at the moment. Nabil Fekir has completed his move to Real Betis yesterday. He signed it in a £17 million deal with add-ons rising to about £27 million, which kind of suggests they might be open to letting Giovanni Lo Celso go this summer. Lo Celso only returned to training yesterday after he was away on international duty with Argentina in the Copa America. And he has actually been left out of their pre-season tour squad. I don't think we can read too much into that because he is just back in training, and usually international players get about 3 weeks off after their commitments. So it could be a bit of good news there if that deal does go ahead. Now, just saying, Matt in Full Vision asking, have you heard the news about Ceballos? It looks like he's rejected us over Arsenal. Can't even understand why. I don't think that's the case. I don't think he has rejected us. Obviously, we know Tottenham were interested in a deal and they were in talks with Real Madrid over that. But Mauricio Pochettino wanted to sign him on a permanent deal rather than a 1 year loan deal. Now, Ceballos himself wants a loan deal because he sees his future at the Santiago Bernabeu and he doesn't want to give up on that dream. Of course, he's still only 21, so he does have a lot of time there to develop and try and get into that Real Madrid team. But both he and Real Madrid wanted a loan deal. But Pochettino wasn't keen on just a loan deal without an option to buy, because he obviously wants to build a squad for the future, and he said ideally, if we were going to get him, it would be with at least the option to buy, maybe an obligation to buy next summer. But he sees that bringing the player in on loan, he might see it as hindering the development of another young player in there. So I don't think it's a thing that he's rejected us. I think Tottenham must have pulled out of the deal, and Arsenal obviously swooped in with that. He would have been a good player to sign, but again, only if it was permanent. I don't think that's a great loan deal to do, because we could get players like Giovanni Lo Celso in, and we have a few young players that impressed in pre-season against Juventus the other day. So I think it's clever not bringing in a player on loan just to give him back to Real Madrid as a better player in a year's time. And they're actually discussing that on the Sky Sports Transfer Talk thing this afternoon, where they were saying essentially what Arsenal are doing now by getting this player in on loan is taking him in for a year and just sending a better player back to Real Madrid. And obviously loan deals are a big part of football, and it does make sense for a team who are in a position where they can't afford to sign a player and they need to get someone in that position. And it seems like that's the position Arsenal are in at the moment. Obviously they're struggling to get deals over the line for Kieran Tierney and William Saliba as well, whereas Tottenham, they have the funds there and there are players that they're looking to buy permanently. So it does look like we pulled out of the Ceballos deal rather than him rejecting us going to Arsenal. I know there is a link there as well between Dani Ceballos and Unai Emery, which Emery was talking about this morning. He knows him from his Real Betis and Real Madrid days. So I think Ceballos did want to work with Emery, but I do think it was Tottenham who actually pulled out of that deal rather than the player himself. And yeah, Arsenal do play in the Europa League, but for him, he wants game time essentially, because he wants his future to be at Real Madrid. He said he wants to go out on loan because he wants to play 40 games a season, and Arsenal is a good place for him to do that. Obviously, with Aaron Ramsey having just moved on to Juventus, there is a gap in that midfield that he could fill this season. And I think it's a really good move for the player going to Arsenal, because he will get that game time, and he's not going to have many players competing in there with him. Players like Mesut Ozil and Henrik Mkhitaryan, they're not as consistent. Probably don't have as much quality as Dani Ceballos. So it does look like the player has made a good decision for himself, although obviously we have missed out on a potential good signing. Now, there's another player that we were linked with that seems to have died down. That's Calvin Phillips from Leeds United. After we signed Jack Clarke, we were apparently going back for a second rate and then looking for Calvin Phillips. He's a sort of defensive midfielder, but he can play in more advanced roles as well. Apparently he made a £30 million bid for him, but that was according to, I think, the Daily Mail or something, so I don't really believe that. But it is a type of player that we were obviously looking into signing this window. It was Ndombele that we got in the end. Calvin Phillips, playing with Leeds, similar to Jack Clarke, he has that style of play that Leeds and Tottenham both the same kind of way, because of the links between Pochettino and Bielsa. So I think it makes sense that we were looking into that type of player, but I don't know if he has the quality to make it into our first team. Obviously, Leeds playing in the Championship last season. For the majority of the year, they were playing at a really high level, and they were in that top two for the majority of the season. But I don't think he quite has the quality to get into our team just yet. So if that is a deal that will go ahead, it won't be happening this window, but it is something that could happen in the next few years, because he is a really good player, but he still has a lot of developing to do. And Jeremy Mears just asking here, has Lo Celso signed yet? He hasn't, but there are a few developments in that today. As I said, Real Betis have signed Nabil Fekir from Lyon, and Giovanni Lo Celso has been left out of their pre-season tour squad. So it does look like there could be some developments there. There were reports yesterday that he was coming to London to have a medical this week, and that the announcement will be made before that. Of course, we are playing Real Madrid in the semi-final of the Audi Cup this day next week. So if a deal was to be done, we would hope that it was done in time for him to play there. The same with Ryan Sessegnon and any other potential signings. Now the deal, the fee for the deal has dropped a lot over the last couple of weeks. There's an £88 million release clause in Lo Celso's contract, but Betis were believed to be looking closer to about £70 million because it's just unrealistic getting that much money for a player. They signed him for, I think it was £21.7 million from PSG only in April, so they are looking to make a quick profit off him if he does leave the club this summer. Now the latest rumours are it's going to be between £45 to £50 million, and that's for a number of reasons the fee has dropped so much. First of all, Betis have missed out on European football this season. They finished 10th in the La Liga last year, so they are looking to accrue some fees that they would otherwise have picked up in like prize funds and TV rights and stuff like that. So they are in a bit of a financial situation at the moment that they need resolved quickly. There's also a clause in Lo Celso's contract that if Betis reject an offer for him that's worth more than double what they signed him for, so if they signed him for say £22 million, if they reject a bid worth more than £44 million, they then have to give him a wage increase. And because of this financial situation they're in at the moment, that's not ideal for them, and it could be more harmful than beneficial for them to keep a hold of the player in that situation. There's also apparently another few clauses in that contract. I think it was Football.London broke this news. When they do sell Lo Celso, PSG have a 20% sell-on fee in that contract. So if they sell him for, say, £50 million, PSG will make £10 million off of that. But they also have to pay 3% to Rosario Central, who's the team that Lo Celso started his career at. So straight away, that's a lot of the transfer fee gone. And if he does go for, as I said, say 20 or £50 million, they'll only make about £38.5 million from that, which is a massive drop from the £70 million they were talking about earlier in the window. We've Riley Melman here saying, my thoughts are Sessegnon done this week, and in the next 2 to 3 weeks Lo Celso to sign. That is kind of what it's looking like. It's obviously not the ideal situation, Lo Celso staying at Betis for a longer period, but Sessegnon, the odds have been slashed on him joining, so that is one I expect to see done this week. Again, there's more rumours that he's going to be having a medical at the club this week, but of course there's never going to be anything official until the signing is complete. But there are a number of sources you'd look out for, like Sky sources would be the most reliable in my opinion, that I'd look out for the news there. Lo Celso 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously the window closes in about 2.5 weeks, but ideally, as I said, we get that done before pre-season, because Pochettino wanted all these deals done by the 8th of July, which I think was a bit unrealistic, but also a bit of a ploy to get Levy to do them as soon as possible, rather than, I don't think he wanted them done by the 8th of July, but that was kind of a date he picked to force Levy into doing them before the pre-season tour started. Now let's see, Matt in Full Vision saying, looks like Bale's not coming back. I can't say I'm too disappointed. Looks like Bale will be off to the Chinese Super League this summer. Sure you've all seen the comments made by Zidane and Bale's agent over the last few days. There's a bit of an argument going on there, which you can understand, but it's hard to see which side of the story is actually right, because Zidane has come out and said, it looks like Bale will be leaving. He wants him to leave, and it'll be best for everyone if he does leave in the next few days. And then his agent coming out saying that was unfair, and it's you can't say that about a player, which is understandable. But now Zidane has said in their pre-season game at the weekend, Bale refused to get changed and he refused to play in the game, which obviously is, as someone who's under contract at the club and who has said he intends to stay until the end of his contract, he shouldn't have done that. And when he's been asked to play, he should play. And he's also made comments already this summer saying that if he's not in Zidane's plans for the future, he'll happily play golf for 3 years and pick up his wage packet at the end of the week, which again is something as a player under contract he shouldn't do. But it looks like he's after the Chinese Super League. Now his agent Jonathan Barnett said this morning that he will not be leaving the club on loan. He said something like they won't be making a makeshift deal to leave the club. At the moment, the player is going to be staying, but if something comes that intrigues him and that interests him, he will be open to leaving the club. It could be tomorrow, or it could be next week, or it could be the last day of the window. Now, the teams that are, so I suppose, closest signing him at the moment are the CSL teams Jiangsu Suning and Beijing Guan, who are both offering him massive salaries. There's some reports saying he'll be earning up to £1 million a week, which is absolutely extraordinary, but I'd see that he'd find it hard to turn that down. It would have been good to see him back at Tottenham because of the effect that he had in the club that he was there, and because he was such a big part of the team. And even though he had that kind of dodgy ending when he refused to train and stuff like that, I wouldn't have been too against him joining the club again. But because of the fees that are involved there, the wages, how much we'd have to pay, as I said yesterday, for a player who is so old and so injury prone, you can understand why that isn't something Tottenham pursued. And it doesn't look like he will be coming to the Premier League at all, because teams like Liverpool and Man City, they have quality squads already, especially in those wide positions, so I don't see that they would be interested. Manchester United seem to be pursuing other options there. Bruno Fernandes, the Sporting Lisbon attacking midfielder that we were linked to, he has said now he wants to play in the Premier League, and it looks like it will be United that he'll be joining. And United are also signing winger Nicolas Pepe for £70 million. I think he plays with Lille in the French league at the moment. So United are definitely pursuing options elsewhere. Chelsea have that transfer embargo, so there's 0% chance of that happening. And then Arsenal, but they're struggling to get those small deals over the line for Kieran Tierney and William Saliba. There's not much chance that they'd go in for him, and even then I don't think Bale would join them given his past with Tottenham. Bill Green's in here, why are we not pursuing Ceballos? That's because Dani Ceballos wants a loan deal to return to Real Madrid next season, and Tottenham are only interested in a permanent deal for the player that would see him join on loan this summer and then signing permanently next summer. But as I said, both Dani Ceballos and Real Madrid are only interested in a loan deal there, so that's not something that's going to be happening this summer. But we haven't missed out on the player. It's more that we've pulled out of the deal, and Arsenal have just swooped in and kind of completed it for themselves. Loan deals are for small clubs like Arsenal. That is a fair comment. You never see the big teams, the teams that are going after trophies, making loan deals. Like Liverpool, City, you never in a million years see them with the situation they're in at the moment making a loan deal. So for Arsenal, it is a thing where, because their budget is so low, they do need to make loan deals. And they are getting a good player, but it's only for a year, and they're going to be losing him next summer. So it's not quite ideal for them. I was going to look here at some of the Tottenham transfer rumours on the Sky Sports website and talk a bit about a few of those. Obviously, Tanguy Ndombele and Jack Clarke, both deals confirmed already. There's Giovani Lo Celso, Ryan Sessegnon, Gareth Bale, and then Nicolo Zaniolo. He's another midfielder that we were linked to this window. He plays for Roma. He's a young, I think he's 19-year-old midfielder, has impressed a lot in their first team already. But the Roma sporting director has said he is absolutely not for sale this summer, and any hopes of him joining Tottenham were slashed right then. When Roma were in talks to sign Alderweireld, there was some thoughts that Tottenham would offer Alderweireld plus cash to sign Zaniolo, and Moussa Sissoko was also named a bit there to be going the other way. That's something I never quite believed because of how well he did for us last season. But Nicolo Zaniolo won't be joining us this summer. He's going to be staying at Roma. That is something that we could go back to in the future, because he is such a great player, and Roma, when they have these good players, they tend to let them go because they're not a team who win trophies. They're not one of the biggest teams in Italy. So when they do get these players, they develop them. The majority of the time, they tend to let them go. Now, there's another one is Dani Alves. Obviously, right back is a position we're looking to improve this summer, having sold Kieran Trippier, and with Serge Aurier's future hanging in the balance at the moment. Dani Alves, I think he's 36 at the moment. He's just left Juventus after a pretty successful spell there, and he's actually the most successful player in club football history. He's won 40 trophies throughout his time at Barcelona and Juventus. I think when I first heard about this deal, his age was something that immediately jumped out as something that would make it impossible. He's a player I thought who would have 1 or 2 more years left in him and then he'd be retiring. But I think it was a comment in one of my videos that said he was quoted saying that he wants to play for the next 3 years and bring Brazil to the next World Cup or the next Copa America or whatever it was. So from the player's point of view, he does seem to have another few years left in him. But again, it comes back to the money side of things. Obviously, he's a free agent at the moment, but his wage with the 2 teams he's played with, and because of the quality of player that he is, I think his wage would be way too much for Tottenham to pay a player who's going to be there short term. Even though it is 3 years, there's definitely no chance of anything longer than that. So that's not one that I expect to see go through this summer. As well, Pochettino wants to sign players under the age of 23. Of course, Alves doesn't come anywhere near that. So I think Hiraki Sakai could be the main right back target this summer, because obviously he's an older player. He's 27 years of age, but he is someone that the club have identified as a kind of fallback option if we fail to sign a right back in the next couple of weeks that fits into that bracket. So it's good to have that kind of that option there, that plan B, if Pochettino's ideal plans don't really come to fruition. Now we've Tottenham Reese and Matt in Full Vision here asking, do you think we're going to win something next season? I think we have a great opportunity to win something. You can never say, oh, we are going to win something, because there are so many teams in England competing for, like there's 6 teams, you would say, competing for 4 trophies. So it's you can't really say that we will win something, but we do have a really good chance this season. As for the Premier League and Champions League, I think we can forget about that already, because of the quality that Man City and Liverpool have domestically. And then in Europe, I think City will, maybe next season could be the year that they do make that jump in Europe and potentially go on and win the Champions League. Liverpool, I think, will be up there again with the quality that they have. And then European teams like Barcelona, of course, and Real Madrid having strengthened so much this summer. Primarily that deal that brought Eden Hazard in, and players like Luka Jovic and Ferland Mendy as well. So I think Champions League is out of the question. Domestic Cups is definitely our best option this season. There's, because of the depth that we seem to have in our squad right now with the few signings we've made, and all the injuries we had last season. Obviously, we're going to have a fresh squad at the start of this season. If we can keep players fit, I think there's no reason why we can't go on and win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. We've made a semi-final in each of the last 3 seasons, the Carabao Cup last year and the FA Cup in the 2 previous seasons. So we have been in and around there for quite a while now. But I think if Pochettino puts a lot more emphasis on those competitions, and he tries to play stronger squads than what he would usually play, we definitely do have a chance there. But I also think, having said that, because of the performances from some of those youth players in the pre-season game against Juventus on Sunday, I think this season is a good chance to get some of those players in and around the first squad. Like Troy Parrott, I think, could be a really important player for us in the domestic competitions this summer, mainly in the first few rounds when we're playing those lower league teams. To give Harry Kane a break, but to bring someone in like Parrott, who has that quality, and he has the pace, and he has the energy, and he's good enough. Like Llorente coming into those positions last season, because he's obviously a much older player, he didn't bring much to the squad apart from hold up play, and we could play those long balls and he'd win a lot of headers. I think Parrott offers a lot more to the squad, and of course it's a brilliant way to develop him. Other players like Jack Rolls, I think, impressed at the weekend, and Japhet Tanganga. So if we can get them in and around the first team this summer or this season in the domestic cups, but also trying to put out as strong teams as possible, I think we have a great chance of winning something this year. And it's obviously that main thing. That's the one thing that Pochettino is missing at the moment, is winning a trophy. And if we can get that first one this season, there's nothing to say that we won't go on and win a few more the season after, and then another couple the season after, and become one of the successful teams in England of recent times. Now Matt in Full Vision saying, I don't think we've got a chance of the league or Champions League. I'd be happy with the FA Cup though. It would shut those Arsenal fans up at least. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Arsenal have been quite successful in the FA Cup the last couple of seasons, so if we can win 1 or 2 and kind of take back the bragging rights and stuff, that wouldn't be a bad thing. You never know, we might get into the Europa League by coming 3rd in the Champions League group, then we can win it. I mean, that is a possibility, but that isn't something at all that the club would be aiming for. You don't want to drop out of the Champions League into the Europa League. I know it is a better chance of a trophy, but we having been in the Champions League final last year, I imagine the club's point of view, their kind of the direction they'd see the club going would be to get back into a Champions League final. And Pochettino, he wants to make progress every single year. So the only natural progression from losing the Champions League final is to go on and win the Champions League final. So the club's ambition this season, I'd say, is and probably has to be to win the Champions League, but realistically, I don't think it is something that will happen. What do you think it will take to get Poch sacked? I'll take a lot to get him sacked. I think he will leave the club before he's going to be sacked, because I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but he's done, like, you can't even describe how much he's done for the club in only 5 years. All that, the infrastructure that's been developed at the club, the amount of money that it took to build obviously the stadium and the training ground and stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if there were no other managers in the world who could take that squad that was left by Tim Sherwood and Andre Villas-Boas and like take it in, and with not even a Daniel Levy budget, but less than a Daniel Levy budget, because there was so much being invested elsewhere, and to even take that squad and to keep it at the level it was, a team in and around the top four, playing Europa League football, I think we would have accepted that, with not as a basis for the club's expectations, but because of everything else that was going on. If Pochettino came in and did that, I think we would have accepted that. But the fact that he has brought us from that position that we were in, with an almost non-existent budget at times, to bring us to where we are at the moment, it's nothing short of a miracle. I mean, you look at managers like Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Jose Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti. They're managers who are winners. They're maybe not Klopp as much, but they are winners. They win trophies, but they do it with money. Like the amount of money that Pep Guardiola has spent at Manchester City, and even the amount that Jose Mourinho spent at Manchester United in the short time he was there. If Pochettino had that sort of money, if he had the option to spend like that, we would be winning everything. But the quality that he has as a manager, and the way he like brings a team together, and his philosophies, and all the thing he usually talks about in his interviews, he does everything so perfectly that he doesn't need that money. He doesn't need this big massive club with like hundreds of millions of fans worldwide. He doesn't need all that. He just needs people who buy into his philosophy, and people who want to play football the way he wants to play. And as I said, what he's done at the club is nothing short of a miracle, and I can't see Daniel Levy sacking him anytime soon. I mean, Pochettino was quoted saying, I think it was in his book written by Guillaume Balaguer, that he said, I think it was the November of his first season, we were playing a game away at Villa Park and we were 1-0 down, and Harry Kane came off the bench. It was one of his first Premier League appearances after doing really well in the Europa League, and he came on and he scored a free kick that won the game for us in the last minute. And Pochettino actually said he was told before that game, not by Daniel Levy but by someone, that Levy was thinking if this game didn't go to plan it could be the end of Pochettino's career. So it's the fine lines like that you have to look at and see how lucky we are. Not only that Daniel Levy actually made that decision to make Pochettino manager, because we were disappointed when that did happen, because he was an unheard of manager, had only come in at Southampton for about a year and a half, and when we were linked with managers like Louis van Gaal and Frank de Boer, when he came in we were disappointed. We were thinking it was another cheap option that Levy had taken. So we're so lucky, all these different things that have happened. And even when Southampton got him from Espanyol, as for something I've spoken about recently when the Coutinho rumours were kind of around, when Southampton went over to Espanyol, it's Nicola Cortese, I think it was their chairman and something like that, went over to Espanyol to scout Philip Coutinho, because he was on loan there from Inter Milan at the time. But he went over looking at Philip Coutinho, and when he came back, it was Mauricio Pochettino was who we wanted to bring to the club. So it was very lucky, even the way Southampton brought him to England in the first place. It was completely by accident. And I mean, the rest is history, and hopefully there'll be more actual history, I suppose, in the future that will make him be remembered as one of the greatest managers in the Premier League. I think he will go down as one of the best managers for Tottenham at the moment. Obviously, he hasn't won any trophies, but I think he will fall into that category with the likes of Bill Nicholson, because of what he has done to the squad in such a short time, such a small budget. And I mean, we're just so lucky that he is at the club. I said here, Matt in Full Vision saying, the thing is, you can tell how much Poch loves the club. Look at his reaction when we beat Ajax. And that's so true. Like that reaction from such a calm, composed man who sometimes doesn't even go out and celebrate goals and stuff like that. I mean, he just lost all control, and I mean, you could see how much it meant to him. And like, I'm sure there was that added emotion from the fact that we were out of it, 2-0 down. It kind of felt like his dream of bringing us to the Champions League final was over, and then all of a sudden Lucas Moura goes away and scores a hat-trick. But you could just see how much it meant to him. And those comments, was it after the quarter-final or before the semi-final? They said if we did win the Champions League, it's something he has kind of reiterated lately. If we did win the Champions League, he would have considered leaving the club. And he said lately that he would have left the club if he won the Champions League, which is a bit, I wouldn't say concerning, but it's something we kind of need to keep an eye on, because he has said in the past that he wants it right now. In this moment, he sees himself finishing his career at Tottenham, and he could be here for 10, 15, 20 more years, but he doesn't know how he's going to feel tomorrow. And like, it's obviously good that right now he sees his career at Tottenham forever, but if he does want to leave the club, something that people never really speak about is, like, say when a player wants to leave a club, he puts in a transfer request. Usually that's done within a year, I suppose, would be the general rule of thumb. You don't want to let him go straight away, because that gives into player power and stuff like that. But with a manager, his career is a lot longer than a player's career. like a player at the age of 25, 26 who does want to leave, it's ideal for them to get that done as quickly as possible, or they could miss their chance to go to a top team and win trophies. But with a manager like Pochettino, he's not even 50 yet, so he could easily have 10, 15, again 20 years left in his career. So if he does want to go on to another team, if he does want to go somewhere where he's more of a chance to win trophies and where he does have more of a budget to build his own team, there's absolutely no rush for him to do that, because his career is naturally so much longer than a player's. I think that's something we need to take into consideration as well. Ben S saying his passion when it comes out is great for us as fans to see that he's going through it just like us, and that's so true. Like, he's, because of how much he's invested into the squad in terms of his time and his effort and just the passion that he has, and because it's such a big project for him, you know, every minute of every day for him has had to go into this because of the things I mentioned, the small budget and stuff like that. He almost has become a fan of the team. He's almost as, obviously he loves the club as much as we do, but he's almost experiencing these things as a fan because of how much he's put into the club. And there's nothing better than that, to see a manager on the touchline who, as you said, goes through it the same as us. And that's one reason why I do think he does have a long-term future at Tottenham. And we're always going to see those rumours, like teams like Man United and Real Madrid, you know, saying that he's going to go there again because of the budget, the more chance of winning trophies and stuff. But he is a fan, and that's I think the main thing that will sway him either way, sway him in the direction of staying at the club, if that decision does need to be made in the future. Now, Nicholas Richmond saying we need to win something. I agree with you to an extent, but I don't think we need to win something, because we're progressing so nicely without having any of those trophies so far, and we are attracting players like Ndombele and Lo Celso. So I don't think it's absolutely vital that we win something, but obviously it's something that we want to do, and something that the club will be looking to do in the next couple of seasons. And I do imagine it at this stage now, it's only going to be a couple of years at most before we do win a trophy. Now, can you give an update on Lo Celso? Yeah, as I said earlier in the video, Real Betis have signed Nabil Fekir for £17 million from Lyon, and he's kind of seen as a replacement for Giovanni Lo Celso. Lo Celso has also been left out of their pre-season tour squad for this summer, but I think that's more to do with his international duty obligations earlier in the summer, and he took part in the Copa America rather than him being left at home to pursue a deal to see him move to Tottenham. Having said that, though, I do think this is a deal that will go through hopefully in the next week, but it may take a bit longer than that. There are reports that he will be having a medical at Tottenham in the next couple of days ahead of a £50 million move, which is a really good signing for that price, considering how much Betis were looking for at the start of the window. So yeah, that is one I do think will go ahead, as well as Ryan Sessegnon, again looking like he'll be having a medical this week, and hopefully the deal will be done so he can play in the Audi Cup against Real Madrid next Tuesday. Now, as I said earlier in the video as well, I'm running a Facebook group at the moment. After I publish the video, when the live stream's over, I'll leave a link in the description to that group. I'm also starting a fantasy football league for, we could call it Matt Hayes Tottenham Blog. I'll leave the code down there below as well, but the code is 8MTEKC. Any Tottenham fans go ahead and join that league, and invite all your friends and stuff to join it as well. And I'm also going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to be giving out a free home jersey for the coming season, and that's when I reach 1,000 subscribers. So if you want to share out my videos and share out my channel and stuff like that, and we try and get to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts, so I can give away that jersey as quickly as possible. Now, let's look at another few of those rumours that were floating about. Dani Olmo, he's one that I spoke about a lot on this channel, young winger for Dinamo Zagreb in the Croatian league. We were apparently close to agreeing a deal to sign him earlier in the window, but that seems to have just fallen to the wayside. It was a deal that, I mean, again, would have been good to go through, because he is a young, exciting player. He plays in the Spanish, the youth setups there, and he has really good records in for Dinamo Zagreb. He scores goals, he gets assists and stuff like that. And as I always say, he fits into our style of play. A very pacey winger. And with the signings that we're making this summer, and the signings that we've already made, it looks like Pochettino is trying to revert to that kind of counter-attacking style of play that we had, that worked so well for us in our last season at White Hart Lane, with players like Saliba, who we were supposedly interested in, but that's the kind of player we'd be looking for in centre-back. Very similar to Alderweireld, that he's a ball-playing centre-back. He's really comfortable in possession. Obviously, he has the defensive attributes as well, but in terms of possession, he's really good in the ball, and he can pick out a pass and stuff like that. Fullbacks, we're looking for pacey players that can, play in a 4 at the back, or if needed, a 3 at the back, and push on as wing backs to add a lot of pace into our attacks. And then Ndombele in the midfield, a player who is so good at making that transition from defence to attack. he can beat a player, he can make passes and stuff like that. So it looks like Pochettino is hoping to go back to that counter-attacking style of play that we saw in the 2016-17 season. And I think we kind of got glimpses of that in the game against Juventus on Sunday as well. I know that Harry Kane chance in the second half when Sissoko picked up the ball at the edge of the box, and all of a sudden the whole team was bursting forward. Sissoko carried the ball a good 70-80 yards before playing it off to Kane, and he did miss that chance. But we saw, even more than that, there were a good few instances where we saw that quick counter-attacking play. And to be honest, Juventus struggled to deal with it. And we were playing such a young side that it kind of shows the effectiveness of that strategy of catching a team on the counter-attack and just going forward with blistering pace. That obviously quality helps in there, but when you have young players like that, it still works, and you don't quite need the best players in the world to make that happen. It's such an effective tactic and style of play that almost anyone can do it when they've been trained right, and it looks like that is what Pochettino is doing this summer. Now, another player we were linked with earlier in the window is Bruno Fernandes. He's an attacking midfielder for Sporting Lisbon, who had unbelievable stats in the Portuguese league last year. I think he scored 32 goals throughout the season as a midfielder. Is an exceptional return. But almost a month ago now, Tottenham actually pulled out of that deal, and they're not interested in signing the player anymore. I imagine that would be something to do with the price that they're looking for, and the fact that they may have identified Lo Celso as a better target, because he is not only a better player but someone who wants to work with Pochettino, and we might even be getting him for a smaller fee. It looks like Fernandes now at the moment will be joining Manchester United. He said either today or yesterday that he wants to play in the Premier League, and United seem to be the only team there that are interested in him. So it looks like Fernandes will be off to Manchester United. Danny van de Beek, the Ajax midfielder, again, that's something that has died down a lot after it was really public earlier in the window that we were interested in signing him. To be honest, at the moment it's looking like Van de Beek might actually stay at Ajax, because the other team that were mentioned being interested in him were Bayern Munich, but they seem to be going for other options at the moment. Of course, they've just lost James Rodriguez. His loan deal has expired. He's gone back to Real Madrid, and players like Frank Ribery and Ian Robben have now retired, so they are looking for players in that position. But I think it's interesting that teams haven't gone in for Danny van de Beek, because he's an unbelievable player. He scored that goal against us in the first leg of the semi-final at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He's a really, really good player, and it's a bit surprising that teams aren't going in from a bit more. Ajax, obviously, a team who do sell. They've already sold Frankie de Jong and Matthias de Ligt this summer, but it looks like Van de Beek might be one of those players who does stay on at Ajax for another year. But I mean, imagine it's only a matter of time before he does make that big money move to Europe, and it could be Tottenham in the next year or so if the Lo Celso deal doesn't go through, or if we sell Eriksen. That could be something that we could see in the next couple of years. But as for this window, it doesn't look like it'll happen. And there's another number of rumours here on Sky Sports, but they're not ones that ever really gathered much pace. It's like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's obviously since joined United, Adrien Rabiot, who's now at Juventus, and players like James Maddison and Jack Grealish, who we were interested in, but because of the position they're in at their own clubs at the moment, it doesn't look like they'll be leaving. Now, I'll take a few more questions here from the chat. Do you think we will get new fullbacks, or do you think he will give youth a chance? That's from Darren Fearon. It's really hard to tell at the moment what's going to happen in the fullback positions, because I mean, obviously in right back we've three options at the moment. There's Serge Aurier, Juan Foyth and Kyle Walker-Peters. Now, Serge Aurier obviously was a really big signing when we brought him in from PSG, but he hasn't really lived up to the expectations that were placed on his shoulders. He is a player that he does have that quality, but it's the consistency and getting that quality out of him that has really let him down. I think even when he was at PSG, but especially since he's come to Tottenham. So in an ideal situation, I don't think Aurier would be our starting right back. Juan Foyth, a really young player who has so much development still to come, and I think in the long term he could be a really good option for right back. But again, he doesn't really have the experience in that position, and I know it's obviously not his fault, it's because he's so young, but Pochettino has actually spoken to Juan Foyth. I forget where this come from, but he has spoken to Juan Foyth in training, and he's asked him what he thinks about his future being as a right back, and it is something that he's been working on in training. And obviously in the Copa America with Argentina this summer, he played in that position and he really impressed, and not only in the defensive side of things, he was quite good going forward as well. He's really improved his ability in possession. He's a lot more confident and stuff like that. So I think from the three, maybe Juan Foyth could be our best option this season, which I think does kind of suggest we do need to bring one in, because he's, as I said, not an ideal player. And I think for Kyle Walker-Peters, when he has gotten into the squad, he's done pretty well. I mean, he had those 2 games against Newcastle, first game in the season, the last 2 seasons, where he did pretty well, but he didn't do much. Like, he was just kind of solid in that position. And against Bournemouth in the Premier League last year, we beat them 5-0 at Wembley, and he got 3 assists in the first half. I think he broke some record. He's like the first defender to get 3 assists in a half of football. So he has shown that quality. He definitely does have it. Defensively, he's not as sound as the likes of Foyth and Aurier. So I think he could be a player that might need to go out on loan a bit, to just develop his abilities and stuff like that. And I would be a bit worried if he was going to be our first choice right back for the season ahead, because of those reasons. But I don't think he will be. As for left back, Ben Davies has signed his new 5-year contract, so he seems to be in Pochettino's plans going forward. Danny Rose all over the place at the moment. Will he be staying? Will he be going? No one knows. Of course, he was left out of our pre-season tour to pursue a move away from the club, but nothing seems to be developing there. And Pochettino has said if he is still at Tottenham when he returns from the tour of Asia ahead of going to Germany, he will have Rose in his plans for the season ahead. And now with Ryan Sessegnon, that deal looks like it'll be going over the line. And he is primarily a left back, but he's also someone who can play anywhere along the left, and he did well with Fulham in the Championship as a left winger. So if that Sessegnon deal gets over the line and Rose stays in left back, we'll be absolutely set. There'll be no more worries there, and it could be potentially be one of our strongest positions because of we have 3 options, and there are players as well, Rose and Sessegnon mainly, who can play in other positions. So I think fullback, if we sign a right back, we'll be absolutely set in those positions. Just at the moment, it doesn't look like we will be signing one this window. Now, Matt in Full Vision saying, do you know of a way I can watch the game against United tomorrow? I actually think that's live on ITV tomorrow. Correct me now if I'm mistaken, but it's either that game or the Real Madrid one next week. But there weren't many good streams for that Juventus game on Sunday. But I do actually have an app that I use for it. It was pretty good. So I'll leave a link in the description to that as well after I publish the video at the end of it, and you can see if that works for you. So again, another few questions in here if you want to put them into the chat. Now, as I said, again, I'll be running a Facebook group and a fantasy football league for the season ahead, so I'll leave links in the description after I publish the video to those as well if you want to join them. Do you reckon we'll beat Man United tomorrow? That's Matt in Full Vision again. Look, it's pre-season. I obviously I hope we do, and I think we might have the quality there to beat them, but it's not the priority of like going into this game. It's more the performance and getting some players game time ahead of the new season. I think we'll see a very similar thing to what we saw against Juventus, with a decent squad starting with a few youth players in there, and then as the second half goes on, we get a few more players, young players into the squad. I hope we do see Christian Eriksen tomorrow or on Thursday, because obviously he didn't play against Juventus, and that made a few more questions about his future. But I hope we do see him, not to kind of confirm that he'll be staying in the club, because obviously we can't trust that at all, but just to get him into the team a bit, so if he does stay, he's match fit going into the new season. I think a few of the young players will be playing again, like Troy Parrott obviously did so well against Juventus. I think he might get a few more minutes. He only played a half on Sunday, so I think he might get a bit more time than that. And other players like Japheth Tanganga, Anthony Georgiou, Jack Rolls, George Marsh, all played really decent games, so I hope they'll get a bit more game time against United as well. I hope Son beats Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Yeah, that'll be an interesting battle on the day. Of course, Wan-Bissaka had really good stats last season in terms of tackles completed and his defensive stats, but I think that's a lot because of the fact he was playing with Crystal Palace. They're a team who are a defensive side and they're on the back foot a lot. So I think his stats like that, they aren't really you can't really compare them to the likes of the top right backs like Alexander-Arnold, and even I know Robertson is a left back, but then Trippier and players like that, because he had a lot more to do in those positions. But it'll be interesting to see. Apparently he has started well with Manchester United and had a good game against Inter Milan. But it'll be a really good battle, Son against Wan-Bissaka, and that is of course if they both start. Son played I think the majority of the game against Juventus, so he could be rested against United, but of course we'll see. I'll get a few more questions here. How do you think we would do this season? That's from Darren Fearon. Top 4 in a domestic cup, I think, is what we need to be aiming for this season. As I said, Premier League just isn't really a likely thing to be aiming for this season because of the quality that Man City and Liverpool have, and City now having strengthened in the middle of the park with Rodri coming in, and there seems to be a bit of a change going on there at Man City because of course Vincent Kompany left, and I know he wasn't a key part of their team last season because of injuries and stuff like that, but he's going to be a massive loss to them. He's a leader in the dressing room, and when he does play, he's one of their better players, and obviously scored that goal against Leicester, which won them the league. But there's some City, I think they're fans, but like pundits who are close to City are saying that it could be a thing where they put Fernandinho in centre back and play Rodri in that centre midfield role. So I don't know if that will be a thing that will strengthen them or weaken them, because Fernandinho as a defensive midfielder, he will have those defensive abilities, but you need a lot more to be playing in centre back than you do to play in midfield. So City haven't strengthened. I don't think they've strengthened that much, because in the middle of the park, I would 100% say Fernandinho was a better player than Rodri, and in centre back, Kompany's a better player than Fernandinho. So while they have brought in an extra player there, it's hard to see which direction they'll go this season. And as for Liverpool, doesn't seem to be many changes there. I do think that they will make one or two signings before the window ends. There won't be marquee signings, but a few to add a bit of depth into that midfield especially. So I think it's unrealistic to target the likes of City and Liverpool in terms of chasing them in the league this season. Top four could be relatively easy for us to get this year if we kind of regain that consistency we had towards the start of last season. United are in a massive transitional period at the moment, with obviously Solskjaer starting to build his team there now. It's his first full season as permanent manager, and their transfer strategy is really interesting, that they're bringing in these young players, mainly young British players, but also Nicolas Pepe now they're bringing in. So it's mainly young players they are bringing in. So this won't be their best season. I do think they'll improve on last season with what they had when Mourinho was there and when they finished the season after Solskjaer became permanent. I do think there'll be a bit more form there, but I don't think they'll be challenging us too much. As for Chelsea, this transfer embargo that they have, Frank Lampard coming in his first Premier League job and losing Eden Hazard, they're in a very precarious position at the moment, and I think they may struggle to get top four this season. They do still have obviously a decent squad in place there, and they do have some great players, but I think they will struggle a lot this season. And as for Arsenal, for them it all depends on the next 2 weeks. If they get Kieran Tierney, Dani Ceballos, William Saliba, Wilfred Zaha and Everton Suarez, all these players they're in talks to sign, 4 of whom they're apparently really close to signing. If they get those deals in, I think they may threaten us a bit next season. I don't want to get too confident and say we're going to finish ahead of all these teams, but looking at the squads that are in place, and even a big part of it is the managerial side of things. We have such a manager, Pochettino has been there for so long. United and Chelsea now with these new managers who are really, really new to the Premier League scene as well. And Arsenal, Emery didn't have his best season there last season, but he's a good manager. So I think we will finish third next season because of the weaknesses of other teams. And if we do get players like Lo Celso and Sessegnon in, I think third could be a given in the season. Champions League, I think we won't reach the final again, being realistic, but I do think we might have a bit of a run in that. And domestic cups, as I said, winning one of those should be a priority this season. So it could be an exciting season. All depends on how the transfers go for all the teams in the Premier League over the next couple of weeks. Jay Spurs here saying, I definitely think Oliver Skipp is future Modric. And I mean, it's maybe not to that level, but he does have a really good future ahead of him. He's a player who made it into the first team squad last season, mainly because of injuries around the team. Players like Dyer, Dembele and Wanyama were all struggling for fitness, and he kind of had to be drafted into that place. And when he did, he played really well, but he's still only 18, so we can't put too much expectation on him at the moment. I mean, you've got players like Marcus Edwards. Pochettino said, he's a future Messi, and it's that sort of expectation on players can hinder their development because there's so much pressure on them and stuff like that. So I think Oliver Skipp does have a good future. He's played really well when he has gotten into the team, and he was probably one of our best players on the pitch against Juventus on Sunday. So I do think he has a bright future ahead, and it'll be someone that we can continue to get into the first team, primarily in those cup competitions, and obviously playing him in pre-season and stuff like that. He could be a really exciting player for the future. Jay Spurs again, why wasn't Edwards picked for pre-season? I'm not too sure what's going on with Edwards at the moment. I don't know if I know he was out on loan last season. I don't know if that's still the case or what. But it just seems to be a thing with him. His attitude and stuff like that hasn't impressed Pochettino, and his development has really slowed down a lot. So it doesn't look like he's a player who will be in our squad at all. There's talks of him being sold at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So it's shaping up to be a potentially really exciting transfer window, but it's all down to what players leave the club, so we can obviously get more in, because we're told we need to sell to buy, and it's anything can happen this window. If players like Ericsson and Rose leave, that'll bring in a lot of money for us to reinvest. But ideally, again, they would stay, because I don't think we get in players that are better than them, but we could get in players who are kind of not worse, but not quite at the level they're at, I suppose. And if we're reinvesting the same kind of money, you have to look at that and think, ideally, we're just going to keep the players that we have and maybe bring in a few players to add a bit of depth in there. Ben S is saying, I'm looking forward to seeing how we do. We had World Cup hangover and massive injuries. Just a relatively straightforward season would see us maybe third, but closer to Liverpool. And that's so true. Like, you have to. There were so many things last season, so many factors in different areas that suggested we'd have a flop season last year. I mean, we had 9 players in the World Cup semi-final who couldn't take part in pre-season and stuff like that, and didn't get any sort of a rest because they had to get back into the first team as quickly as possible for that opener against Newcastle. I know there were even a few who missed that because of the lack of break they had during the pre-season. And injuries, we had more injuries than any other team in the league. I think there was something like 77 injuries throughout the season. That's including minor and major injuries, which are insane numbers. And I think that all comes back to the fact that we didn't make any signings last window, because there was so much pressure, and we had to rely so much on the players that were at the club that we couldn't rotate as much. And then when there were some players being expected and forced to play, at the weekend and the midweek, then the next weekend, the next midweek, and I know it's obviously they're professional footballers, it's what they do for their living, they should be able to keep up with that, but with the intensity that Tottenham play with the the high press and the counter-attacking football and the being in possession so often, and especially the training, we know Pochettino loves those double training sessions, it is a lot to ask of a player. And when we had all those injuries, our squad was so thin for kind of the middle of the season and then pushing on towards the end as well, and you could definitely see our form suffered. I mean, we lost 13 games in the Premier League last season, which is the most since I think the 2008-2009 season. And we just got lucky, I suppose, that we only had one draw and then the rest were wins. It was 24 wins over the season, which is a really good record. So last season was really impressive. Obviously, we finished 4th in the end. We were pipped by Chelsea on the last day, or not the last day, towards the end of the season. So I think we have to be really happy what did happen last season, because of the fact that we shouldn't have had a good season. Like, realistically, we shouldn't have. And we got lucky that Jose Mourinho was so poor at the start against United that he was then sacked, and they had to bring in Solskjaer, an inexperienced manager who really had to do a lot to turn that team around. Chelsea under Maurizio Sarri in the middle of the season had a disappointing period, and then Emery really struggled in his first season at Arsenal to get that form, get that consistency. So I think we were a bit lucky, but we also have to praise the manager and the players for what they did achieve last season. And as well, obviously, we can't ignore getting to that Champions League final. It was a really good season, and as Ben says, going into this new season, I think our expectations should be higher, because we have the same spine to our squad at the moment. Obviously, we've lost Trippier, but he was one of our poorer players last season, and we seem to be holding on to those players that did want to leave. So I think going into this season, we have to try and keep grounded a bit and not expect to go on and win the league, win the Champions League, win a cup and stuff like that. But there's no reason why we can't be getting excited, because our players now have had this rest, and they looked so sharp in pre-season on Sunday. And it's not often that you see a team back in their first game in pre-season that they are so sharp and they're so quick and playing against such a strong team. It was almost Juventus' strongest team. I know they left a few players back in Italy like Giorgio Chiellini, but it was a team for them that would have started in the Serie A, that would have potentially started in the Champions League. So the fact that we did, not only that we were the better team, but that we obviously beat them, the expectations for the season should be high, and this could be the season, as I said, that we go on and win something. Matt in Full Vision saying, Skip is such a great young player, I'd love to see him get some more game time next season, same with Walker Peters. And yeah, it is, getting those young players into the squad is going to be really important. As I said, maybe focus on getting them in the domestic cups, and maybe loan Kyle Walker Peters out, because he won't have that much chance to get into the first team with Aurier and Juan Foyth there as well in the right back position, and potentially a new signing. But yeah, getting those young players into the squad is going to be so important, and it's something Pochettino does do really well. Obviously developing those young players, and in that game against Juventus again on Sunday, there was 10 academy graduates playing there, and the fact that we beat, as I said, a really strong Juventus side says all you need to know about Pochettino and his work with youth, and the setup at the club that develops those youth players so well. Jay Spurs is saying, what do you think Dele Alli's role is for this season? I think it'll be fairly similar to what it has been for the last couple of years, playing in that number 10 role. He could be, if we do bring in Lo Celso, his position could be under a bit of threat because obviously it'd be different now if Eriksen leaves, but Ali, he struggled for that form and that consistency in the last couple of years, and he's kind of been guaranteed that place in the first team because there wasn't much there to compete with him. But I think if Lo Celso comes in, he'd really have to kind of fix his game a lot. But when he does play, he is without a doubt one of our best players. Like, he plays in that position, that number 10 role behind the striker, and I know we have that kind of that three behind the striker rotate a lot, but Ali seems to do best in that central role, and he makes those late runs into the box, and it causes so much trouble for defenders because when he's sitting in that position between the midfield and the defence, it's no one really knows whose job it is to pick him up, and then he makes that late run into the box, and when the defence is already set and they have one centre back sweeping, they've one on Harry Kane, they're right back on the winger behind and stuff like that. When he makes that late run into the box, it can cause problems for any team. And I remember that game last time we played Chelsea at White Hart Lane when we beat them 2-0 to end their winning run. It was him scoring 2 headers, making late runs in like that, and he is such an important part to our team when he is on form, playing in that position. And Matt in Full Vision saying, I like Ali, but I notice he tends to go missing at times, and that is really true, but like he does go missing a lot of the time in the smaller games. Like, he seems to really play when he's in those big games. He's a great record against Chelsea, and he scored a few against United and Arsenal and stuff like that. But as I said, the position that he's playing in, it's a thing where if he does go missing, but he pops up with 2 or 3 opportunities and he gets a goal or two, I mean, that's all you want from him, because in that position it's hard to get the ball into him because he's, as I said, defence behind him, midfield in front of him. He's going to be moving around a lot. He's going to be making a lot of decoy runs as well for the players around him to get into positions. He does go missing, but when he's good, he's good, and he's a very important part of our team. Ben S saying, yeah, Dele needs to fix up if Lo Celso comes in. These guys now have competition. Yeah, and that is without a doubt something that will be on Pochettino's mind, bringing in these attacking players, and something that's needed at the club. Because, as I said again, that lack of depth last season, while it did affect players' fitness and stuff like that, it also would have affected their mentality going into a game and in training when they realise that there's no one there who can take their position. And I'd like to think that's not the kind of thoughts that they do have, but when you're in that position, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to keep that out of your mind, that even if you have a bad game, you're more than likely going to be starting the next game because there isn't much competition there for you. And saying here, he's like Jesse Lingard, which I suppose is true. He's a player, when he's good, he's good, but when he's not, he's really disappointing, and you don't really want him on the pitch. Now, as I said earlier in the video as well, I have a Facebook group that I'm going to put a link down in the description to, and also a fantasy football league. I'm going to be doing a giveaway of a free Tottenham jersey when I hit 1,000 subscribers. So share my videos, share the channel and stuff like that, and we'll get there as soon as possible. And also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I do about 3 or 4 transfer videos every week. Now, coming towards the end of the window, I'm going to try and do more daily videos and a lot more live streams like this. So if you do want to get that content, and when the season starts, I'm going to be doing match previews and reviews and things like that. Please subscribe to the channel down below, and you'll press that notification bell as well, so you know whenever I upload a video. Now that is all the time I have for today. As I said, subscribe for more content like this, like the videos, and share out my channel so we can get to 1,000 subscribers, and hopefully I can give out that free jersey before the season starts. Thanks for watching.